Okay, so sustainable, inclusive environment is the first topic. I think going over more issues with kind of those tokenistic policies and processes that
There you go.
that people
you just put your finger on what the problem is right there. When people are ticking a box, you're not. What you're doing is putting a plaster over something, which is not to indicate that there's a bruise or anything wrong in that. But the point is that it has to. An inclusive environment is almost something that you shouldn't be having to think about because you're taking each person as they come for whatever they are. You find out about them from what they tell you. You're not constantly trying to interpret and go, "Oh, hello, ADHD person in HR. I've just read a whole book about ADHD, so I know all about you." You know, you're waiting to hear what happens for them. And for me, the ideal inclusive environment would be somebody coming up and going, "You know what, I'm having real problems concentrating because my brain pattern does this. Can we do something with?" They might not know, so it might be any suggestions for what we can do in order to help my concentration. Or I know what really helps me is to work in 20-minute bursts and then to go out for 2 minutes at a time. Culturally, look a bit weird. Can we do something to make that possible? Or it might be. Or can you give me a partition so that I'm not seeing everybody else like a blinkered horse?
Yeah, and I think like for that, the culture is such a massive aspect. Like literally the other day, which she probably didn't even like realize, but my manager when I started my new job, she said, "So how do you how do you like to communicate with people? Like, would you mind if I just call you at random? Do you want me to schedule calls? Like, are you an email person?" I was like,
"That's great."
I was like that small things like that. Well, like going into a new environment, it probably like takes like 5 seconds. Do you know what I mean? But it's just the way that people think. Like, oh, let me just check that this works for them. And now because I've had that conversation, I'm in an environment where I can say, where I feel comfortable saying, "Oh, this is actually kind of a bit of an issue. Like, I kind of want to." You know, I'm in a large plan office. There's people everywhere talking all the time, and I kind of said the other day, like, you know, it might be better if I can just go off and work in a quiet room for a little bit. And they're like, "Yeah, sure." Do you know what I mean? Just like having that flexibility that you don't have a assigned seat. You don't have to be here all the time. You can, you know, work here. You can work from home. You can go work outside. You can go sit in a cafe. You know, you can work in places that works for your brain. Is really important.
Yeah, and there's two things I'm thinking about that, and you know, I'm hoping that it will be all right for you to use that example.
Yeah.
But first of all, I noticed you didn't say. So some people say it like that. I can't even use the word authentic because it's so inauthentic. Some people say it like that. It's from the heart. It's just like, this is what I do. I'm used to doing this, not making a big thing of it. As opposed to going, I know it's really important to have communication for neurodivergent people at the top of our agenda as a company.
Yeah.
So I'd like to ask you how you'd like me to communicate. At that point, I probably want to nut someone. Well,
yeah.
And but just that. So I think it's the difference between somebody doing it because they genuinely care and they're not able on your head. Yes, Albert's in the corner here. And becoming very self-conscious about raising the issue, so then you're an issue, not a person. So that's the first thing. And the second thing was that actually it'd be different for different people as well. So it's all true, but you know, someone with a certain kind of autistic trait would absolutely not be able to cope with being told you can be moving around. They want to know I'm at that desk on a Monday and a Tuesday, and you know, so having very clear boundaries and schedules and rotations for people who aren't, and I'm saying some autistic, that's just an autistic trait. That's not obviously, as you know.
Yeah.
I mean, every autistic person would want that, and that's a stereotype. Or then, you know, ADHD, where it might be a combination of both, or just helping someone feel comfortable. It's those kind of things, isn't it?
Yeah. And that all just goes down to communication and culture again. Like if you don't feel, sorry?
Chatting to the person, right?
Yeah, literally. Like if you don't feel that your manager or your employer can listen to you when you have kind of like when you have information about yourself. So if you wanted to say, I don't like the way this is communicated, can we change it like this? Like, just even for somebody who's neurodivergent to have that conversation, they need to feel safe that that's going to be heard, and that's going to be met with a, yeah, of course, like a can do, not a, oh, that's, yeah, I guess I can do that if you want to. Or it needs to be like, yeah, of course, like how can I help? It needs to be accommodated, and it has to be kind of like seen as a thank you so much for communicating that with us and feeling that you can talk to us about it, instead of a chore from the manager that's like, oh, somebody's adding this on my plate, now I've got to change the way that I work. It should be a, well, now I get to help my employee work better because they feel comfortable with me telling me how well they work in which type of way, you know.
Or from the other perspective, you know, with your HR hat on, you know this, but somebody who's coming and going, I am just, so I'm thinking, you know, so I'm dyscalculic. I am dyscalculic, therefore I will need this, and this in place. You know, like we, you know, also making demands isn't a very helpful way for an invitation to a communication. And if somebody doesn't have knowledge about how our brain patterns work, that's kind of okay, or as long as they're curious and open about it. And even if they screw up and make a mistake, you know, we're currently at a point where people are so petrified of saying anything because so many of us are feeling insecure and lacking self-confidence. And the only way we're going to get over that is by putting out these little hands of trust. And that's a great example you've given, where someone you've just been introduced to is very just naturally going, so what will work for you better?
Yeah, literally, that's what it is. I think trust is the key word, for that, because I can imagine, even from like a manager's perspective and a HR perspective, when, you know, if you do, the fear of if you say or do something wrong, the repercussions of whatever from a business side can be a lot. So people are scared to say the wrong thing because they're like, oh, if I say the wrong thing, then, you know, I might get disciplined, I might get fired, the business might get sued, like all those kind of things. So when people are too scared to even try, because to try is the risk of failing, it's just choosing to fail anyway, because you're not allowing people the space to talk, to make those mistakes. So it's, again, if I keep going back to that culture of like, are you comfortable saying things? What happens if you say things wrong? Is it okay? How are you met? Are you met with tolerance and understanding? And, you know, like people saying, it's fine, you made a mistake, well, this is how you can do it, you know? Or are you met with, oh, I can't believe you've even suggested that, or I can't believe you've even thought that, because this is me and this is who I am, and how dare you think I'm this person, and that's the way that I work. Because that's kind of, as you said, it's not always it's not one side needs to be better than the other. It's both sides need to be accommodating, and both sides need to understand that their brain type is different to that. Even if it's somebody who's ADHD and somebody who's neurotypical, if that exists, as we've already said this week. Just because the neurotypical person says something wrong, is it the job of the ADHD person to be like, I can't believe you said this, and kind of like shun them, or is it their job to teach them like, oh, interesting that you've said that, really good point, but I would actually prefer it in the future if you could maybe think about it through this lens, or talk about it using this language, you know, because you might have spoken to somebody who's okay with that before, but that kind of doesn't really sit right with me. So can we change that together? And that's the approach that I think both sides need to have.
No, absolutely. I mean, in some ways, we're at a point in our societal history where people's ability to communicate is like virtually zero at times. Anyway. So, you know, as I often say to ND people that I work with, this idea that the so-called, like you say, societal rules of how to talk to each other, a lot of them have gone. People's ability to negotiate is highly eroded. People's ability to think or respond beyond a simplistic binary answer is also severely impinged by the way that we practice communication. And again, because so many of us feel siloed and lacking, well, not heard, and also lacking in confidence. So there is an amazing opportunity, and people. It is important, and it is a big deal. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm trivializing any of this, but moving a desk from the middle of the room to a window or a corner could literally change someone's working life. It is on some levels, it's as simple as that.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be spending ridiculous amounts on training or systems or like
so
fancy softwares or anything like that. It can just be what environment do you like to work in? How should I communicate with you? What timings works best with you? Like, do you need extra flexibility with meetings? Do you need to walk out the room 5 minutes and have a little and come back? Like, do you need, when I asked you a question in a meeting, do you want to, take a break and people not be like, why are they sitting there silent for so long? Because me, dyslexic, my working memory struggles a little bit. And sometimes in a meeting, if somebody asks me a question, I can go, and then I'm like, and then I feel like everybody's looking at me, but like probably nobody's realizing it's all in my head. But just having that conversation with somebody, be like, look, in a meeting, I am listening, and when you ask me a question, and when I take a little bit of a thought, that's not me trying to remember what you said. That's me trying to put my response in the right order so that I articulate that to you in the best way. Or
that thing where I can drive myself into a cul-de-sac answering someone's question, and I can completely forget what the question is.
Yeah, literally answering the question and thinking, wait, what am I talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
Keep going.
And I just don't. I just kind of go, dyslexic moment.
Literally
do that. So these things are really easy wins. Or systems in place, like tech. I was reading something in that wonderful Nancy Doyle book yesterday. It also resonates with my experience. For a lot of companies that I've worked with, not yours, where I'm having to negotiate tech, but actually there's an assumption that I can manage it.
Yeah,
absolutely can't. And that's me going, I'm a terrible, I'm really crap. And somebody going, you need confidence. My brain does not. What Google, other suppliers are allowed. Logic might do, and I will. Yeah. The amount of times I've been locked out of places and locked myself away from places and lost passwords and gone on the wrong on the wrong site or used the wrong email or really.
I'm gonna jump on that because I think that's a really important point. Is that I feel like I'm always saying, ask the person, they're likely to know what's best for them, but they're not always going to know. Like in one of my experiences, one of my old organizations, whose name shall not be named, said, okay, you're dyslexic, how can we help you? Go away, do some research, come back and let us know what we can do. And I thought, I don't know what's going to help me.
That's like you've got the problem.
Now, exactly. Like you're the issue. Go fix it, and then we'll do what we can. So, in their words were, "We will help you," but their actions were, "Bye. Go let us know what can be done." And that's not beneficial because if somebody doesn't know how, like people that have been recently diagnosed or people that aren't diagnosed but just have issues and they think there's something that's going on but they're not too sure, like if just saying go away and tell us what's good for you is not going to help them. That's when you need coaching, mentoring, support, and like even the workplace needs assessment, just having those things that people can go to then diagnose, okay, these are the issues I have, okay, this is the support that you can get from that. Having somebody walk through that, okay, so your average day at work, what does that look like? What issues generally pop up? And like, let's work together to help you come to us, or help us come to a solution, not you. That's so much of a better way, that collaborative approach between HR and employee, manager and employee. Do you know what I mean? That's not you go away and come back and let us know what we can do. It's why don't we find things that we can do together to help you?
I think that's beautiful because the corollary of that is that if it's not, I can imagine people maybe listening to this are going, well, if it's not the job of the person who's dyslexic to the other person, then you've already said it's not the workplace though. So who the hell is it supposed to be? That's exactly what you've just said. Everything should be a collaborative venture. So sitting with whether it's your manager or whether it's HR or whether it's a senior leader that's trying to affect some change, or L&D, whoever it is, sitting down with them going, okay, so this is where I am. Let's sit down and think about this and tease out, because what that person needs might be, like you say, to find out what they need. So we can help them find out what they need. So, I think that's a really good point.
Step one is that collaborative, investigative process of where are you, how well are you doing? Are you at 40% of your optimal productivity? Okay, how can we get you to 60, 70? So I mean, all of the things, because the issues that I feel like some people think that the challenges that neurodivergent people face are things that can be overcome. You're dyslexic, it's okay, you'll learn to spell, Your ADHD, you're struggling with your organisation, it's fine, we'll get these things in and you will overcome that, but it's not, it's managing it and working with tools and workarounds and things that kind of enable those challenges to be less challenging.
And the only reason why they're challenging is because we insist on people who have those brain patterns working in a particular way. If an ADHD person was left to organise their lives in their own way and do it at their own pace and time, I can guarantee that 90% of their life would be perfectly all right.
Yeah.
Same with the first example was dyslexic people, wasn't it, you talked about in the first place. Same. The same. Yeah. It's only because we come slap against a system that's not working. Personally, I don't see the system working for anyone, because as far as I can see, everyone's kind of overworked, working too hard, pushing themselves. So add, so a brain pattern that's not really included in the thought process into that, and it's a bit of it can be a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah. So I guess going back to the initial, I think we might have just segued into loads of different topics then. But but that was always going to happen. But I think because we were talking about a sustainable, inclusive environment, I think the main topics that from what I can remember in the last kind of 10 minutes, was a collaborative approach between employees, managers, HR, everybody from both sides, neurodivergents and neurotypicals alike, kind of working together to get the best out of everyone. And then something that we didn't touch, we touched on a little bit, that tokenistic, those one-off trainings, those one-off diversity days, which are, great for spreading awareness and great for, I don't know, other things, I'm sure.
Giving the basic,
exactly,
the basic intro and the facts of what a situation is.
They
raise awareness.
But kind of to go deeper and to actually make a meaningful impact is to embed the changes, processes, policies and everything within the whole working system, instead of having it as, like I said, I was talking to somebody the other day, because I'm working with an organisation now to fix up their DE&I, and I was speaking to somebody who was on the DE&I committee of this organisation, and they said, and they were talking about, all the diversity days they have. And I said, that's great, you've got that awareness, but it's kind of like you've got your business and your organisation as one nice meal, and then you've got a side of fries as the D&I kind of strategy that you've got going on. And, it's not really part of the meal. It's just something that, you take a fry every now and then and it's fine. But what you want to do is you want to embed those ingredients into the whole main meal so that everything works. You don't even notice that it's in there, because everything's just working so smoothly. And that's what I think is a sustainable kind of inclusive environment, is when everything is just mixed in so well, and so
I like that.
Yeah, mixed in so well that you can't even see it, feel it, because it's just the culture, and everybody just knows that everybody's supportive, everybody's kind of equal, it's all inclusive, everything's diverse, and everything's just working really nicely.
And if I can push that one stage further,
of course you can.
If we take away the idea of a neurotypical brain, so we just see everyone as having a brain pattern, then I think we're on the beginnings of a win. It's more of a challenge. We can, and don't get me wrong, I think knowing how our brains work, particularly diagnoses, can be incredibly helpful. But past a certain point, certainly within a workplace, to recognise that certain people will not be able to do certain things with ease, whoever they are, then that's really good. We talked about this before, like brain fog, for example. which can be associated to ND stuff, but also is highly connected to hormones. It's a big part of chronic illness, as I well know, living with fibromyalgia. That's going to impact on my cognitive ability. Well, day after day after day. Well, my ability to stay awake, day after day after day. But nevertheless, that's there you are, dyslexic moment. Beautiful.
Yeah. What was the point?
Cul-de-sac driven arrived.
Yeah, exactly.